Alright, in this video we're going to talk about one way that we can use all of this factoring to solve equations. So now, instead of having just an expression that's something without an equal sign, we actually have an equation. We're taking something and we're setting it equal to 0. Now in this case we have x minus 2 times x plus 4. It looks like something sort of after you factored it. And the question is, what values of x are going to solve this equation? So what we have are two things multiplied together in this case with a 0 on the other side of the equation. Now how can two things multiplied together equal 0? Well, the answer is one of them could be 0. For example, in this case, x minus 2 could be 0. Now if this x minus 2 is 0, then this whole thing is 0, right? Because there's multiplication in this problem. The other possibility is that x plus 4 could equal 0. And if x plus 4, this term, equals 0, then the whole thing equals 0 and this equation is satisfied. This idea that if you have terms multiplied together equal to 0, this idea that you can split them up into pieces is called the principle of zero products. So I'll say it again. In general, if you have two or more things multiplied together equal to 0, you can split them up into pieces. You can say this thing could be 0 or that thing could be 0. Now what we can do is solve each of these really simple equations separately. So to get x by itself over here, we just add 2 to both sides and we get x equals 2. And to get x by itself over here, we just subtract 4 from both sides and we get x equals negative 4. And those are our two answers. The solutions to this equation are x equals 2 and x equals negative 4. Okay, let's do a slightly harder one. Let's say we have solve 5x plus 1 times 2x minus 9 equals 0. We can do the same thing. We can split this up into two pieces because we have two terms that are multiplied set equal to 0 on the other side of the equation. So we can split it up. 5x plus 1 could be 0, or 2x minus 9 could be 0. Now to solve these equations, there's just one more step than in the last example. We're going to subtract 1 from both sides of that equation, then divide by 5. Over here we're going to add 9 to both sides of the equation and divide by 2. The solutions for this problem are x equals negative 1/5 and x equals 9/2. And as always, you can always check your results. If we go back to this first example, we could plug x equals 2 into this problem, and you'll notice right away you get 2 minus 2, and immediately that's 0 times 6, which is just, of course, 0. If we plugged negative 4 into this first equation, we would get negative 4 minus 2, that's negative 6 times negative 4 plus 4. Negative 6 times 0 equals 0 as well. So these solutions all check out. Now just one more quick example. Let's say we have x times x minus 5 equals 0. Now again, we have two things multiplied by each other set equal to 0. So we can split it up into pieces. This first piece is just an x. So x could be 0. The second piece is x minus 5. So x minus 5 could be 0. And of course, there's nothing to solve on this side. Just x equals 0 is the solution. And over here, all we have to do is add 5 to both sides, and we get our answer. X equals 5 and x equals 0 are both solutions to these problems. Now, as you're probably guessing, you're not just going to be given something that's already factored for you set equal to 0. What we're going to have to do in this section is actually do the factoring ourselves to get the, say, x minus 2 times x plus 4, and then solve the equation from there. So here's an example of that. We want to solve x squared minus 6x minus 7 equals 0. And the key is just to use the skills that we learned in the previous sections and factor. We're always going to factor. So here we have a trinomial, and you know that you can factor a trinomial into two binomials. We're going to put x's in there, and since there's just a 1 in front of this x squared, we're going to find two numbers that multiply to get negative 7 to add to negative 6. And you think about it for a while, use your factoring from previous sections, and you're going to get that right there. X minus 7 times x plus 1. Now from here, the problem is simple. All you have to do is split it up into two pieces. You have two terms multiplied, set equal to 0. So all you have to do is take x minus 7 equals 0 and x plus 1 equals 0. You're going to get your two answers really easily. You have x equals 7 and x equals negative 1. Those are the solutions to that problem. So for the most part, all these problems are just as difficult as the factoring in the problem is. Let's take a look at another example. Now, we have terms on both sides of the equation. So what should we do? Well, the answer is you want to get everything on one side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 8x to both sides of the equation, and I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides of the equation. That's going to give us a 0 on the right side of the equation, which is something that we need to solve these types of equations. On the left side, we're going to have a 3x squared. And if we combine like terms, we have negative 2x plus 8x. That's plus 6x minus 9. Now what we have to do is factor. You'll notice that we can take a 3 out of every single one of these terms in the left-hand side. If we do that, in the parentheses, we're left with an x squared plus 2x minus 3. Now we can continue to factor. We're left with the trinomial, which, if we can factor, is going to be factored into two binomials. And in this case, you use your skills from the previous sections. You get x plus 3 and x minus 1. So I think a lot of students get tripped up with this type of an example. When you have a number outside of the parentheses, I always get the question, what do you do with that? Well, the answer is you do the same thing that you always do. You have three things multiplied together, set equal to 0. So you can split it up into three pieces. Now this first piece is going to look kind of funny. 3 equals 0. The second piece, x plus 3 equals 0. And the last piece, x minus 1 equals 0. How are we going to solve this first piece? Well, the answer is you don't. You can't solve 3 equals 0. It's just not a true equation. So that doesn't give us any solutions at all. We are going to get two solutions, though. One from each one of these last two equations. We're going to get x equals negative 3 and x equals positive 1. And that's basically it. If you have an equation, you can move everything on one side of the equation and see if you can factor it. If you can factor it, then you can solve that equation. Okay, so here's your video quiz. You have three equations to solve them all.